I think. There we go. We finally have some audio this morning. There were some changes made in this. First of all, I'll explain that because you'll need to know where yeah, and that audio is just jumping all around on me this morning. There were some adjustments made in this studio yesterday after I left the office. So what you're likely hearing is me actually fiddling with a couple of dials over here on the side so that we can actually bring you my voice this morning. And you missed the lovely witty opening that I had just a couple of minutes ago in that particular moment. So sorry about that, but we're going to work on that and maybe try to restructure and say, all right, we're going to hit the restart button now. It looks as if another one of those cultural dominoes is falling in the state of Idaho. There you go, which I said a minute ago, and you may not have actually heard me as I was saying it, but I did. I promise. I wouldn't make that up, and I didn't paraphrase. That's the exact quote of what I was saying because I was thinking about it after seeing some of the glaring headlines this morning, and I'm telling you what we're talking about. That phrase, add the words, which has been a long-time phrase echoed around the state for the last few years. It looks as if there are finally people at the state capitol who are willing to go along and, quote, add the words, unquote. Those would be the words that would extend protections on housing, rental housing, for instance, and as well as work to folks in the same-sex community in the state of Idaho. And now, when I first was sitting down listening to this radio station, News Radio 1310 KLIX, and I was listening, by the way, online, newsradio1310.com, that was one of the hottest topics that I heard being discussed. And Kelly and Jill were talking about it on a regular basis, and people were getting very heated about all of this. Now, keep in mind, it's a right-to-work state. That means someone could dismiss you from a job, and you don't know why they dismissed you from the job. You're not going to get an explanation. Or they could give you one if they wanted to be nice about it. So we have people who say, well, I was dismissed because I was in a same-sex relationship. They may feel that that was the cause, but they're not sure of that. And I don't know that there's ever going to be a way to prove that. Now, one of the former hosts here used to say that people had been removed from housing, that they had been booted from rental housing because of sexual orientation. Here's my take on all of this. I think it's wrong if someone does that. But don't we already have courts? Do we actually need some extra legal language, or do we need extra judicial language that would create a special class? Because it seems to me, no matter who you are, if you feel you've been wronged because of your orientation or because of your height or your shortness or and I guess height could be either tall or short, or your weight, or because of your skin color or your ethnicity, don't you already have some sort of recourse when it comes to courts? That's the part that surprises me about this. If someone came to me tomorrow and said, you know, you're a really pale-looking Caucasian, I don't really like those around here, so, you know, you're out of a place to live, I think that I might be able to have a case there that says that that was discriminatory, and I don't need someone adding any language to laws saying that, you know, we have to be especially vigilant about people with pasty white skin getting removed from their homes. Am I wrong on that one? I just, and yet you can see how this has happened over the last few years, because there are polls cited saying back in 2007 that state residents had various feelings about these issues. And then if you look at the polls taken in recent months and really in the last couple of years, that there's been an inversion. And so most people really don't have any animosity towards people who are involved in same-sex relationships. And because of that, you know that there are people in politics who for a long time said, no, we won't do this. And again, they wet an index finger and they held it up in the air and they decided to see which way the wind was blowing. And the wind is now blowing out of another direction. And the governor says he will sign such legislation as long as there are religious protections. In other words, there are certain. I had a close friend who was going to a church many years ago, and the church secretary was fired. She had been married to a JAG officer in the Marine Corps, really swell guy, but she started having an affair with the church janitor, and then she moved in with him, and then she threatened a lawsuit after she was fired. Well, why did that happen? Because the church says that adultery is wrong. And you can't have a church employee engaged in adultery. That was the feeling that they had inside the church office. So she was fired. And it was a big scandal, and there was a lot of noise about all of it. And is it unfortunate? It's unfortunate for everybody involved. But I certainly understand why the church did it and where the church would be coming from. So the governor says if this add the words takes place and he signs it, it will have to include some religious protections. And we talked about this yesterday. There are simply some people out there, and I know folks in media don't get it. They believe that you are supposed to surrender your faith. It's something that you do in a building for 1 hour on Sundays, and when you're out of that building, they try to say you don't live it outside the building. Well, you are called to live it every waking and sleeping hour of your day, are you not? I mean, these are points we were trying to bring up yesterday. So it looks as if there will be some effort at that. But one more time, the domino is falling, and it's just another one, and it's sweeping the country. Every last bastion of even the most reddest states seems to be falling in the culture wars. Keep in mind, though, when all of the culture wars are finally finished, then what will liberals argue about? Because they certainly can't talk about economics and dollars and cents, and that's all that's going to be left. So, in other words, they're going to unload whatever issues they have, and when they're done, then they're going to be pretty much a spent force at that point. I saw something in the Wall Street Journal this morning. In the online edition, there was a writer named James Taranto, and he's got a great legal mind, and he's picking apart the arguments of a columnist at a rival newspaper across town called the New York Times, the Bible of American liberalism. And there was a gay writer at the New York Times named Frank Bruni, who was saying that he feels that religious people are going overboard in denying to bake cakes or take pictures for gay weddings, and that we need to stop that. We need to ensure that if despite your religious objections, that you comply, and so everyone will feel better about themselves. And Mr. Taranto, who comes from a right-of-center perspective and as I said, has a great legal mind, says without harboring animus toward gays or sharing the eccentric baker's social and religious views, one may reasonably ask, if a baker is uncomfortable baking a cake for you, why call the cake police? Why not just find another baker who's happy to have your business? Happy to have your business. You see, there you go. It's really about just trying to be nasty, mean, and force people to do your will. To sit here and say it's about your rights, no. You're just mean-spirited people. 8:15. And you're up next on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com on Top Story with Bill Colley. What's up?
Yeah, it's kind of along that same lines. It had to be probably around 2006 or so, 2007. I was talking to owner of one of the largest property management companies in Twin Falls. It might be the largest. And I asked him, are you required, can you discriminate based on sexual orientation? If somebody's gay, can you refuse to rent to them? And he said to me he didn't want to refuse to rent to them because they were clean. They were clean tenants. So that's along the same lines. They're not having a problem in Twin Falls, I'll tell you that right now, because they're clean tenants. They can find a place to rent.
Yes, the stereotypical of fastidiousness of that community, right.
Yeah, and it's not only stereotypical, it's an actuality. Because that's one way you can tell if somebody's gay. Now, heterosexual, yeah, they're going to have a sloppy apartment, I'll tell you that right now.
Oh.
If you've got a friend who's straight and has a really neat apartment, and of course, if you add to that they're watching the Tony Awards, then they're gay.
Is that a generalization, or are you speaking of everyone?
What do you mean?
I thank you for the call. I just depends on my mood. Sometimes I have a really clean apartment, and sometimes I have a messy apartment. Does that mean that I'm wavering back and forth between my choices in life? I don't think so. Look, Felix Unger was very clean, but he was always out with women when I remember watching that TV show when I was a kid. So I think sometimes I was watching a movie a few years ago with Meryl Streep and the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, where Hoffman was playing a priest who was apparently a gay priest. And he was trying to instruct the boys in gym class at the Catholic school where he was teaching that they had to have clean fingernails. And my date at that movie turned to me and whispered to me, she said, yeah, that's what they're like. They all have clean and manicured fingernails. That's what they are like. I do know people who are of that persuasion, who are just as sloppy about their lives as the rest of us. So I think to sit there and say that's what they're all like probably goes a wee bit too far in that particular situation. Uh, but look, a little bit more on this story, maybe in a more serious bent. This writer, Frank Bruni, being criticized in the Wall Street Journal by the writer James Taranto, says Bruni reveals just how much he wants to curtail the right to religious freedom when he says, quote, I support the rights of people to believe what they do and say what they wish in their pews, homes, and hearts, unquote. And the critic says that's quite a qualification. Religious freedom and free speech, in Bruni's view, are suitable for exercise only in private. Gosh, if we said to them, you have to take your sex lives back into the closet, they'd be marching in the streets with pitchforks. Although exceptionally clean pitchforks, you'd have to admit. But they wouldn't have filthy pitchforks whatsoever. They would have cleaned the manure off them long before the march. But Frank Bruni apparently is saying that you can have your religious views, but you've got to keep them in the closet. This is a direct reversal of the way life was in this country for hundreds of years, if you haven't already noticed that. A few years ago, a senator from Kentucky by the name of Rand Paul was being interviewed by Chris Matthews on MSDNC. That's for Microsoft Democrat National Committee. And he was asked about his opposition to the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And the host of the show was trying to portray Paul as a racist. And all Paul said was, look, you as a business person have the choice and liberty to decide who you'd like to serve. If someone shows up without socks or shoes and a shirt, you can turn them away. And he said, even if you don't want to serve somebody because of their ethnicity, he said, someone else will. Someone else will understand that, open up a restaurant catering to those people, and the capitalist opportunity will allow them to make a lot of money. That's simply all he's talking about. We seem to be dealing with that. If you don't want to buy a cake from one person, or they don't want to sell to you, someone else will, and they'll make a fortune doing it. Hey, we've got more coming up. We're going to be talking about something called Tip a Cop a little later in the program this morning, coming up after 8:30. I'm still working on this microphone thing, but I think we're going to be fine as far as that goes, as long as you don't hear all of the static in the background and the distortion in my voice. That's actually quite natural. I was born that way, and so radio has to actually work to counteract that. Talking about another one of those cultural touchstones that we've been dealing with in recent years as people's attitudes and moods change and the like. The Minnesota Vikings, that was my favorite football team when I was a little boy, and I have a favorite AFC football team that sort of supplanted them over time, but the two teams that are my favorites have won a combined 0 Super Bowls and 8 tries. But the general manager of the Vikings says he's going to welcome back Adrian Peterson. You may remember Peterson was banned from football until this spring. They're not actually playing in the spring. And I'll get to my caller in just a moment, but Peterson was banned from football because he spanked one of his children. And spanking is bad. It may not be illegal, but according to the NFL, it's bad. You can go out on the field and you can knock somebody down and slam them into the ground, but spanking children is a no-no. Right now we have 23, and it's 8:25 on well, I want to mention very quickly, I've got guests coming in just a few minutes, but on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And we have a caller joining us this morning, and you're up next. Thank you for your patience. All right, let's try another caller, and that caller with us at the moment. Hi, you're on the air.
Good morning, Bill.
Morning. What's on your mind?
Oh, okay, yeah. I just wanted to make a general observation about culture and societies and how when we have institutionalized groups or entities such as religion, government, when those institutions become threatened, either by a change in societal views or the like, they seem to become, when they feel threatened, they act defensively, and if that doesn't work, then they act aggressively a lot of times. And I think that when in issues of faith and religion, there's always the hope that even if your institution is no longer safe and secure, you still have the inner faith to go ahead and carry on with how you relate to your God. So to me, it's just the institutionalized strike, their efforts to strike back and to feel safe and get a pass.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you much for the call, and good having the input this morning. And of course, 736-0300 is how you can reach us on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX, as well as newsradio1310.com. The people who may end up striking back before all of this is over are actually the people of faith, and you'll hear it from the people, as I said, newspaper editors who've never read the Bible try to interpret your faith for you. They will say, well, no, you can't do that because you're Christians. You're just supposed to roll over and die. Not necessarily true. I mean, and they'll say, oh, but Jesus was such a peaceful man. Actually, when he was whipping people in the temple and tipping over the moneylenders' tables, maybe not so much. And if you look back through the Old Testament, Joshua, he was just a military machine, wiping out everything in his path that got in the way of the people. All I'm saying is there may be a day where the people of faith are pushed back so far against the wall that the backlash may not be something that other people out there are going to appreciate. It's 8:27, and you're on 1310 KLIX.
Good morning. Your conversation this morning has made me think about hate crime laws, and I've opposed those from the beginning, and I oppose them now. It just creates a different class. It tells me that some people are more deserving of justice than other people. And I just have a problem with the hate crime laws.
Yeah, I thank you much for the call, too, as well. As I was mentioning earlier, don't we already have laws that will protect these people? When someone says, well, no, we don't. Well, wait a minute. If you feel you've been wronged, you have the recourse of courts. And that exists for everyone. And so I read the other day, somebody was talking about the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution. Right now, the federal government would claim in all of these matters that it supplants anything the states do anyway. So if you feel that you're not getting the proper protection in Idaho, you're going to go down and see the U.S. attorney, are you not? And you would plead your case there, or someone in the Justice Department would be taking it up, and there would be some sort of federal civil rights lawsuit that might be coming, or case. So I think anybody who would be in the rental business today would be foolish to make such a judgment like that, because what could result in media coverage and the bad publicity and the like. There was a story today that I happened to see in a paper out of Massachusetts. A pizza delivery man went to deliver pizza at an automobile dealership, and he thought he got it on $42 and some change that it cost for the pizzas. They gave him $50, and he thought that was a tip, and he left. When he got back to the restaurant, he got a telephone call, and the folks at the dealership demanded that he come back and actually return the $7. They said they weren't giving him a tip. So he drove back, and when he got there, they literally threatened him with bodily harm. We know all of this because the folks working there on their own security camera thought it was funny. They posted it to a YouTube video. They are suddenly under so much intense heat right now that they don't know what to do, because they look so bad the way they treated this young man who seemed nothing but polite and who was more than willing to give the money back. It's going to hurt their business. Anybody who was in the rental business knows the same thing. You don't need bad publicity. It's a business killer. We've got some folks joining us in a few minutes from the Twin Falls Police Department. A couple of different subjects we'll be talking about. Hope you can stick around. It's 8:30 on Top Story. Do need to mention, we've had a big spike in our temperature. Hey, we're now up to 24, and we're coming up on 8:34 this morning. You're listening to Top Story. My name is Bill Colley, and the station is News Radio 1310 KLIX, and you can also reach us online or listen to us online at newsradio1310.com. I have a couple of guests in studio, so after earlier blowing out everybody's ears in the building, I am now going to try to make sure that we are all on the same microphone level. Can I get a hello from both of you? Or maybe one at a time?
Hello, Bill.
All right. I think we've got that up there. We're going to try that one more time. And go ahead.
Hello.
Excellent.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Josh is really booming through there. So we have a couple of guests who join us this morning from the Twin Falls Police Department. And first of all, it's Officer O'Donnell.
Yes.
And so we're the two Irishmen right now inside this broadcast booth?
Yeah, we are. We can take these other two, I think.
You're here today talking about, well, it's really a great outreach in that we're talking a little bit about the fact that the online presence that you have right now, and I'm sure it's a two-way street. It's helpful to you, but it's also very helpful to the public.
Yes, and that's what we're trying to do with social media and our websites. And it's ultimately the whole goal of this is to enhance communication with the community. And it's a two-way street communication. In the past, before social media and a lot of that, it was two-way communication was sometimes difficult with the community to reach the whole community. But now with the different social media outlets, it's simple for everybody. And it's more real time where we can get information out to the community. The community is our eyes and ears. And so, when we do have incidents occur, when we need the community's help, we always need the community's help, but specifically when we need to look out for more specific with these incidents, we can release that information and, immediately we've got that many more eyes and ears out there looking.
You've got a Facebook presence too.
We do. We've tried to enhance our Facebook presence, again, putting out more real-time information out to the community, interacting with that. We actually received quite a bit of feedback through even private messaging where the community's contacting us, giving us tips, giving us ideas of different things that's occurring. And so that we've really increased that over the past 6 months. We've also kind of newer to the Twitter world, but learning how to tweet and how people utilize that in their daily activities. And there's also different demographics for each social platform. I mean, if you look at Facebook is now, well, it's kind of for us middle-aged or older guys. Yes. The kids kind of laugh when you talk about Facebook, and and they've got their Snapchats and their other social media outlets, and so we try to reach out to them, all the demographics. But one thing that's unique, and such as like Facebook, of that, we are reaching. Our general audience is going to be late 20s, 30s, 40s, and then we're even reaching out to people in their 60s and older who are now on Facebook and utilize that.
I should mention I added that Facebook page, hit like on it a few days ago, even before we talked about doing this particular angle on the story. And fairly simple to do. You just search Twin Falls and it'll show several choices. One's the police department, and you click on that and then you click like, right? That's
absolutely, yep. Just search Twin Falls Police. Twin Falls Police is, if you put that in Facebook, that'll pull up our page, and then you click like. And same thing with Twitter, where it's Twin Falls PD, I guess, would be our on Twitter.
What's the website address?
Website address is www.tfid.org. It is a city website used as a city in a whole. We communicate out to the general public with that. We are looking at ways to maybe enhance the police portion of that website. And again, it's all about communication and making it just to ease communications between us and the community and getting information out there for them.
We should point out later today you're going to be a very busy guy. Can I mention that?
Absolutely.
You're going to have some fun today.
We're going to have some fun today. I'm also a member of the Twin Falls Police Department Bomb Squad. And today we'll have a news crew with us for a while, and so we're going to go out and stage an explosion and just kind of show them what we do as a bomb squad and how we operate.
Josh, we're going to talk a little bit more following this break, but you're here today because of something called, Josh Hayes, because of Tip a Cop. And I mentioned earlier, this is not about trying to tip over police officers, because that would be a really bad idea.
No bribery today.
But you're going to be doing this for a charitable cause.
Yes, Special Olympics, absolutely. And it'll be a fun cause that we do today from 11 to 2 and 5 to 8. Call Maxie's Pizza and Pasta, and officers will be delivering your pizza in a uniform. And the TFPD has provided police vehicles for us, and it's a very fun event. Obviously, and 100% of the tips that we can receive goes 100% to the Special Olympics here in Idaho.
I think we can wrap this all up in a minute or so, but this is reminiscent of Andy Griffith delivering the chicken soup. That's what I thought of when I heard about it.
Very similar, yes.
Yeah.
We're super excited about it. This is our third annual event that we've done. We've had great success, great support from the community and businesses. So just remember, calling in at 11 o'clock, you can get your pizzas. We have pastas as well down at Maxie's. The phone number there is 733-3963. And it's very simple to do. And the nice thing is you don't even have to leave your office to participate and donate.
And we do want to mention that they're matching all the tips. You may have said that.
Absolutely.
We'll just repeat that.
I didn't mention that, but Maxey's does match dollar for dollar everything we raise. Maxey's will match that for us.
Well, there you go. Lunch and dinner for a good cause. I'd like to thank both of you for coming in today.
Thank you.
And we got to do this again sometime. All right, super. We've got a break coming up in just a moment. Stick around. I was driving into work this morning, and I was looking at gasoline prices. There's a variation on Blue Lakes Boulevard of about almost 25 cents a gallon, depending on what station you happen to be driving by. Well, you could be paying maybe for a more premium, I guess, level of gas. I have a 4-cylinder, so I don't really worry what I put into it. And I usually go with just the regular unleaded, but one of the stations, if you're paying cash, it reads $1.55 a gallon. Adjusted for inflation, gasoline may be about the cheapest it's ever been. I remember in late 1998, or spring of 1998, I guess it was, gasoline prices around the country were well under $1 for the first time in a long, long time. And an economist telling me, he said in real dollar terms, gasoline had been the cheapest it was since about 1917. And he said, when you realize how many people were driving back then, he said, you could say gasoline is the cheapest it's ever been. So this recent drop in prices, which may continue, could end up giving you the cheapest transportation fuel we've ever had. And if you're talking about an economy showing some signs of life, that's probably a good reason why it's happening. It's 8:45. I've got friends in other states, though, who are still paying 70 to 75 cents more per gallon for all of that, and that's because of their individual state gasoline taxes that they're dealing with. We have 24 right now, and if you're getting ready to go out to work, it's actually quite dry. It's cold, but it's quite dry, so you don't have any serious concerns about what the roads would be like. And I know there are people who had to work perhaps a little later than the morning commute, the typical morning commute, so I just want to pass that along. You're listening to Top Story with Bill Colley on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com if you're tuning in online. You can reach our show, 736-0300. That's 736-0300. Meanwhile, in the U.S. Senate and in Congress, they are talking Keystone XL pipeline. And there are some doubts about whether this thing will actually have a veto-proof majority and that the president could go ahead and end up vetoing this effort to actually increase energy production between Canada and the United States and perhaps even drive those prices lower. There's a fellow by the name of Arthur Herman writing at the Washington Examiner saying Keystone matters more now than ever. And he said people are saying, well, we don't need it because crude oil is below $50 a barrel. But he says it could shave as much as $5 from the cost to deliver every barrel of Canadian crude sold to American refiners. The difference matters more at $50 or $60 a barrel than at $100 or $80 a barrel. Lower transportation costs matter both to American consumers and Canadian producers. While most analysts agree U.S. shale producers will weather the current global fall in prices, it has put oil far below Canada's average break-even price for tar sands production, which is $60. Keystone would throw a lifeline to Canada's oil industry when they most critically need it, just as we still need Canada. So the relationship between the two countries, economically, very, very important. And if this is going to help continue this economic turnaround, although there were 316,000 first-time applicants for unemployment last week, that actually is a bit of a downturn now. And so we're seeing some mixed signals. But the cheap fuel is what could eventually bail us all out. We have a telephone caller joining us on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com, and you're on the air.
Good morning, Bill.
Yes, sir.
You know, I think Jill would be ecstatic about the thing you were talking about before you had the cops on.
Ah, yes.
The adding the word, but I, on the other hand, I'm like some of the other callers. Why do we have to legislate everything under the sun?
Jill's argument was, if I recall, that she knew someone who had claimed to actually have been evicted and maybe it happened. I'm not going to doubt the story, but there could have been other reasons as well. And maybe they just felt that was the reason they got booted from an apartment.
But Bill, you can find someone that's gotten something on anything. I mean, maybe someone did get done like that, but they don't know the circumstances behind it.
Sure.
Maybe they did something that they were told not to do. Who knows?
Yeah,
I don't care.
If you're cooking
like
meth,
you said we have laws in this country already that protect people.
if you're cooking meth,
we all have the freedom to do what we want.
If you're cooking meth in the kitchen or the basement, it doesn't
You're
matter.
out of there.
It doesn't matter if you're gay or straight. But obviously we don't know that story, and I can't pass judgment on that particular case.
I think my biggest thing, Bill, is I'm getting sick and tired of everybody using some kind of race card or something else to justify or say what they're doing is right, and it's not right. And if somebody wants to be a jerk, they have just as much right to be a jerk as the person that's gay or whatever else.
Yeah.
You just don't have to deal with them.
I thank you much for the call. And look, right to assembly means you don't have to assemble with people. That's you can choose to be alone. You can choose not to like certain people. In this whole notion of, quote, hate crimes, unquote, there are lots of things in life that I've come to hate. I don't know any specific groups of people. I will admit that. I don't necessarily know that I have any animosity out there. Individually, I've had to learn to